Okay, I am making another video. Hopefully this one won't be 20 minutes long. I don't know if anyone actually watched that video. I don't suggest watching it. It's really boring. But anyways, this one I actually know what I'm going to be talking about more or less. Like, not too much. It's not too specific, but more or less I do know what I'm going to be talking about. And it's more on like the lines of actual MBTI and functions and all that great stuff, which I'm not ridiculously familiar with. I've only been into this for like 2 months. I've known my type for about a year, which is ISFP, but I've only been really into this, like major obsessive, for like 2 months. So yeah, forgive me if I don't have the correct lingo going on for me, but okay, so actually, I've been really into the NTs, not specifically any of the four, but just NTs in general, and how they function, how they, deal with their personal lives and all that. And since I've been interested in the intellectual types, or so the name that they're given, I've lately, sort of been applying to myself, the stereotypical qualities, I guess, that they're given, which they're stereotypical for a reason, I suppose. Or they're stereotypes for a reason. They're there for us, but for a reason, because NTs have I'm blabbing. They're they act a certain way, and people tend to generalize, but it's it comes from someplace. But what I'm trying to get at is, at how most NTs are usually, they're very objective. They're not, they don't lack, they don't lack emotion, but, they choose not to really express it, or they don't have as good experience in expressing it. But everyone's different, so everyone, like, they all have their reasons as to why they're not as emotional as a feeler would be. But lately I've been applying it to myself, to be more objective, and just to put myself in that mindset. And considering I'm an SF, I'm a sensor, a feeler, I tend to be very subjective with things. Like, it goes through this filter in my head, regardless of how I actually respond to things. It goes through this filter of, does this interfere with how I feel? Does it interfere with my morals and my ethics, and how, if I think this is right or wrong? Every situation, every conversation, like, everything goes through that filter. And it still goes through that filter, even when I try to be very objective, or not cold, so to speak, but instead of sugarcoating things or beating around the bush as I usually do, when I don't want to hurt someone's feelings, when I'm trying to, for example, give advice, I've actually tried just being blunt, and I haven't gotten as many reactions, like, just from my friends. Like, I haven't told them that I'm doing this. Like, I do it. Like, I'm more blunt than I usually would, when I'm usually comfortable with. But it's almost uplifting in a way, since it doesn't go, like, it still goes through my filter. Like, I still think a ridiculous amount on what I'm about to say to a person, but, since I think about it, I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to be objective about this. I'm going to see how this works for me. It's still uplifting in a way. Because it's so unlike how I would usually respond to something. I have to think about it first, because, it doesn't come naturally to me to be objective and to be more rational about things, versus being irrational, from my, like, by using my emotions instead of using logic and things I don't usually apply to my decisions or responses to people in daily life. But no, it's uplifting because it is so different than from what I usually do, and it it, it's almost like it makes me feel less responsible for it makes me feel less responsible for the situation at hand, where I apply more objectivity, um, objectiveness, instead of being subjective about something. Um, Maybe that's how NTs feel. I'm not really sure. They sort of, it's not my mindset, so I have no idea. But um, regardless of how uplifting it may be, though, it's still like, whether I'm being objective about something, whether I want to or not, it still goes through, I guess I could call it like my feelers um, filter. Um, I cannot, like, it. It's inconceivable to think that I could change my type. Like, I've not wanted, but I've almost yearned to just get in that mindset of an NT, because it's so unlike my own, because I constantly am worrying about offending someone or clashing with someone, regardless of, whether it's clashing with my beliefs. I just don't like that conflict or confrontation. So it's amazing to think, what it would be like in the mind of an NT and how they function with things like that. But yeah, it's inconceivable to think that I could change my type. Um, yeah, like I know I'm an SF, like, no doubt about it. Things go through that filter that I just mentioned. Um, Anything basically. But it's interesting. Like, I can apply those things that, the stereotypical qualities that NTs have. I can apply those things to my daily life, but regardless of how well I can do that, it doesn't feel natural to me, for example, like, I'm in a situation where my best friend asked me for advice, and instead of saying, oh, well, um, just beating around the bush, I just say, well, I don't think you should do that. That's really dumb. You shouldn't do that. I would get a really weird look. For one, like, I'm not like that. So that's one reason I would get a weird look for acting so unlike myself, which would be, acting more how a thinker would in those situations. But it's so foreign to act that way. Suddenly lost my train of thought. I'm babbling way too much. But yeah, no, in an example situation like that, I've actually applied it to when I'm talking with my best friend, and she actually said I was getting an attitude with her when I was acting a little different than how I usually would, because I was applying, I was trying to just, it almost does feel more natural in a sense to just turn off my filter, just say, like, I'm not going to beat around the bush, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, I'm not going to try to put it through that filter so I don't offend someone. It is almost, uplifting in a sense, because I don't have to feel responsible for how they react to it, but at the same time, it is unnatural because I'm so used to caring about how what I say affects, like how what I say affects people affects me. I internalize every reaction I get from someone, so it's very weird. Like, it's natural, like, it ends up feeling natural, I guess, with time, to like, shut off that filter that I have. But at the same time, I'm so used to, how I am, so it would be very weird for me to change myself. But yeah, it's definitely, thinkers and feelers are so different from each other. I guess that's why I'm so interested in NTs, because they are they can be so unlike myself. They're so objective and yeah, I'm not like that at all. Although I try to be. I try to, because being objective in certain situations helps. But yeah, I'm definitely deep into this, that I've actually been applying these things to myself. But yeah, that's it for this video. It's only 10 minutes long, which is surprising. I thought it was going to be like 30 minutes long. I hope this video wasn't boring though. So have a good day, Personality Cafe users.